BBC4. Welcome back to Fly Me to the Moon. Last week we explored the many thousands of men and women who made the space race possible, but this week, join us as we go back to 1968, just one full year before man put its first step on the moon. "1968 was an eventful year. The Vietnam War, Martin Luther King's assassination, and an ever-growing tension between the government and its people. But there was one event that saved it all. During the 1960s, the US Apollo program had been designing and building their Saturn rocket series. Within the space of a single decade, they had evolved the tiny 510 Saturn I rocket at 55 meters into the Goliath Saturn V. The Saturn V rocket, at double the height and over 6 times the mass of the Saturn I at 2,970 metric tons, had advanced computer systems, multiple life support systems, and could haul over 15 times the weight to low Earth orbit, or LEO. However, the Russians had been developing something for many years to rival even modern rockets. Since 1951 and all throughout the 60s, Sergei Korolev had been designing the mighty N1 rocket. Being a whole 17 meters wider and utilizing 30 NK-15 rockets in the first stage alone, otherwise known as Block A, and theoretically capable of freighting massive amounts of cargo into space, this was sure to be a landmark of Soviet engineering and genius to rival even the US. But what was the goal to this? To land on the moon.
We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
The Russians' plan was to send 2 cosmonauts to the moon and back unharmed, while the US would send 3. The winner would proclaim themselves the more advanced nation and be written into the history books forever. To get to the moon would take a decade of research and testing and over $100 billion, mechanical engineering, and thousands of individuals to pull together to make science fiction reality. In order to land anything on the moon, an extreme amount of speed must be achieved to circle the planet, only then for the challenge to be to leave it, requiring yet more power. About a week is required to fly to the moon at several times the speed of a bullet, only then for more fuel to be needed to be captured by the moon's gravitational pull, at which point the challenge is then to land. Even after landing, the challenge does not stop as the crew must get back into orbit, use yet more power to get back to Earth, and when back at Earth a week later, the capsule must be resistant enough to withstand temperatures of over 2,760 degrees Celsius, over double what it takes to melt glass, and nearly 10 times the heat of a nuclear reactor, before splashdown in the Pacific Ocean. In 1969, while the Americans perfected the Apollo program and prepared for a launch date in July, the N1 rocket had launched for the first time in February, a full 6 months before Apollo 11. The Russians began to fall behind, and their failure to get a vehicle off the ground was beginning to show through. Their first N1 rocket had resulted in complete failure of the first stage due to computer errors in their core flight system, as well as intense vibrations in the first stage shutting off one and later all 30 engines. The result was a complete 180-degree flip mid-flight, and by T plus 183 seconds into flight, the N1 crashed down hard. The second N1 had a critical failure in the engine, causing an explosion inside the first stage, shutting off all but one engine, resulting in a 45-degree angle, and then a crash landing. The N1 rocket crashed directly onto the launch pad, causing one of the largest non-nuclear explosions in history. The explosion was said to be so powerful it was visible 22 miles away and had destroyed the entire launch pad. This took 18 months to rebuild. There were a further 2 launches and a 5th planned launch in 1974, but was cancelled due to lack of funding. Earlier in the decade, the lead engineer and designer, Sergei Korolev, had died due to complications of a routine surgery made worse by injuries sustained in a gulag. Without a competent lead and no clear direction, the Soviet lunar mission was scrapped in 1974. With the Soviets out of the race, the Americans had landed on the moon by the 20th of July, 1969. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin were the first of only a handful of humans to ever land on the moon. The last human who stood on the moon was Gene Cernan on December 7th, 1972. This has been Fly Me to the Moon with Cameron Hughes, and as we come to a close, I leave you with the final words ever spoken on the moon. Thanks for listening.
America's challenge of today has that forged man's destiny of tomorrow. And as we leave the moon in Taurus Littrow, we leave as we came, and God willing, as we shall return, with peace and hope for all mankind. Godspeed the crew of Apollo 17.
Thanks to the archives at NASA, we were able to put this documentary together. Here we take our facts seriously. If you'd like to know where we got our facts, visit our website. For all our sources and extra information, go to our website at www.nept.co.uk. Don't forget to follow our social media so you don't miss out on our next project. If this documentary has interested you, we also recommend the Kyrgyz Arts website. If you wish to be part of our next project, drop us an email.